Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the EV portion. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning. Welcome, everybody.
Thanks for joining us. The background behind us, as always, is artificial intelligence, and we're starting to use Grok a little bit more. And realized this morning that the resolution wasn't quite as good as DAL-E on Grok's version. But we hope you're happy with it. It's a new studio in a high rise with lots of windows and a sunset outside. Looks like we've got some people chiming in fairly quickly. Again, let us know where you're coming in from, and we'll try to entertain all the questions and comments that come in. This one's from YouTube, Robert M. Peterson. He says, doesn't Tesla already employ more people than the entire UAW membership?
Oh, yeah, Robert, I don't know for sure, but I think it's actually pretty close.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a bit here. So the tariff issue has begun to raise its...
Yes, it has. You've heard the rumors about the EU wanting to impose tariffs on Chinese cars and basically anything that comes out of China, regardless of brand. And those tariffs, the rumor was somewhere around 20% or so. And it would not only be China's BYD cars, but it would be Teslas that are made in China. It would be Volvos, because Geely is a Chinese-owned company, and they do some Polestar and Volvo manufacturing in China, among others. And the main numbers have finally come down. Tesla will face a 9% tariff on vehicles that are imported into the European Union from China. And it's much less than the 20.8% that was being talked about. BYD will have 17%, Volvo 19.3%, and MG, that's the car that's now owned by Chinese company SAIC and no longer a British car. It's kind of a 36.3% tariff.
Wow.
Oh, that one's really high. But if you remember from one of our previous podcasts, we were talking about the electric MG and how it was only going to be somewhere around $35,000 in China, but it was going to be almost twice that over in Europe.
Now, I wonder how they arrived at these seemingly arbitrary percentages. Was it based on the cost of the vehicles, or whether they like that particular car company or not? I mean, what would you say would be the motivation here?
I would say yes and yes.
Okay.
I honestly don't know the full motivation. I think the price of the vehicles has a lot to do with it. I also I think the idea of, like BYD, they're probably a higher number because they're producing lower cost vehicles, and the Europeans believe that they can absorb the tariffs better with those. For somebody like Geely, the Volvo and Polestar are not terribly inexpensive vehicles, and yet they ended up with a fairly high number as well. For Tesla, which is probably the biggest automaker impacted by this, you saw how many Teslas there were at the European takeover. Tesla is going to be less impacted than they anticipated.
Yeah, and the stock market is actually responding to that.
Yes,
expectation.
They're responding pretty positively to that expectation, because they had priced in for Tesla to have to deal with the Shanghai-made Model Ys being 20% higher than the Berlin-made ones. Now, with it only 10% higher, it's going to be much more of just a homogeneous price that Tesla will be able to set for all the cars, and that's a big win for Tesla in that.
In this particular article that began to address this change in tariffs in Europe, there was also there was another comment made, and it goes something like this. Separately, Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump said that he is open to appointing Tesla CEO Elon Musk to a cabinet job or advisory role if he wins a second term in November. This is according to Reuters.
If I'm Elon, I'm saying, thanks, Donald, but you just tanked my stock.
Well, and that's kind of what the rest of this article is alluding to. This could be bad news for Tesla, they say, for shareholders who are already worried Musk is spread too thin with his interests in spacecraft manufacturing, SpaceX, construction firm, Boring Company, and social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, that's the fact is, Elon has capable staff working for him in every one of these
Yep.
companies. Otherwise, the companies would all be a complete mess right now, and they're not.
Yep.
They're all being very well run. Um, in my opinion, personally, if Elon were to take and designate a person or two people or a small team in each company to be his leadership team, as it were,
Hmm.
and let those people get to be known to the rest of the world just a little bit. Now, it's kind of an anti-Elon thing because he likes the spotlight, and this is moving the spotlight off of him a little.
Hmm.
But I think it would present the rest of the world some assurance that he knows what he's doing because
Yeah.
he knows what he's doing.
Like SpaceX, for example, Gwynne Shotwell, calls a lot of the shots there, no pun intended.
Yeah.
And if you've noticed how much time Elon spends on Twitter and on X, I'm not sure there's much time left to run companies.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, so it's, and like I've always surmised, any company is actually a combination of some very talented people that are the driving force behind the magic that these companies create, especially with 140,000 employees in Tesla alone. Well, after the layoffs, I think that was
Yes.
reduced a bit, but it's so I'm not sure that Elon's impact is that much. And you know what? I wouldn't mind seeing a business leader in the White House on the cabinet. I think that's sorely needed. Deficit
Yeah.
spending, for example. Everybody in our business understands that doesn't work. You know,
Yeah, exactly. And, it doesn't take a company with 130,000 employees in order for most CEOs to understand, hey, I can't have my fingers deeply into the pot on every little thing that goes on in the company.
Mhm.
And it's the people that are not in those ownership type positions that don't seem to understand that. So I'm not, I wish there wasn't quite the panic in the marketplace about Donald Trump's comment. I think it would be good to see if Donald gets elected to have somebody like Elon, if not Elon himself, in a cabinet position.
Yeah, I think the largest corporation in the United States is the U.S. government.
Yes.
Got some questions coming in and comments. Facebook, Lorenzo Galarza, thank you for joining us. He says, "What's up?" Well, we've got our podcast midstream. Feel free to comment and give us your ideas. Instagram is joining us. Richard Maletti Jr. He says, "Rich from Michigan, welcome." And Instagram also, Richard says, "Why the difference?" Forget the topic that we were talking about.
Well, other than this first topic here, about the tariffs, it could be that he's asking about why the difference in tariffs.
Oh, okay, that's true. That was the same question I asked.
Yeah, yeah. And then Oakshade 104 on Instagram says, so, what is the cost of a course to be an EV tech?
I don't know of any learning institutions that offer a pay-for-view learning course for EV techs yet. And it's coming, I'm sure. But the closest we have to that was a program that was started by Tesla called a START program, where they were actually encouraging and partially funding certain learning institutions to develop EV technicians. And I think that's a very healthy program, especially considering that the automotive industry is pivoting toward EVs, and that the existing pool of talent is going to have a very difficult time pivoting into that because of the radical differences in cars. The cars still look the same: four tires, cabin, steering wheel, but it ends there. These are computers on wheels nowadays.
Well, and if full self-driving has its way, the similarities will end after four cars in a cabin. Not even all cars will have steering wheels anymore.
Good point. Yes. Another comment from Oakshade 104. He says, "A national charger standard would be nice." Well, that's exactly what Tesla has been doing with the North American Charging Standard, also known as NACS. And fortunately, the majority of auto manufacturers now have adopted that. So we do have an evolving standard.
We do. And CCS1 is also an existing standard. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. In Europe, the CCS2 charging standard is pretty much a standard for Europeans. Those are high-speed DC chargers. The J1772 standard, I believe, is fairly common in both the United States, where I know it is, and in Europe, where I believe that is as well. and that allows for level 2 charging, which is alternating current, 240 volts, up to usually about 50 amps.
Hmm. Jesse, we have an image we want to throw up here. It's called Rivian_Lucid. And some of the EV heavies were actually at Pebble Beach, very popular California destination for the auto purists. And it's a showcase where people can show off their finest cars, whether they're vintage or whether they're new production. And what you're seeing here is a couple of pictures, but the three guys there are Peter Rawlinson chatting with RJ Scaringe from Rivian in the middle there on the left. And then we've got the Ferrari CEO, Benedetto Vigna, who has joined them. And what they're sitting on or next to is the new Lucid Gravity vehicle, which, of course, Lucid is very proud of. By the end of this year, they claim they're going to be, they will be releasing this vehicle.
I want one.
You want one?
I like SUVs.
And it is alleged that this is a direct competitor to the R1S, which is Rivian's SUV. And there's some interesting comments made by Pete Rawlinson. These two other guys, Ferrari and Rivian, stopped to look at the Gravity, and they were looking at the spacious frunk, as Peter pointed out. Frunk, by the way, in the EV term is not a trunk. It is a front trunk, which you can do because you no longer have an internal combustion engine taking up the entire space between fenders in the front. My wife and I forget that we have that with our Model S, and oftentimes we'll have groceries, and we always load them in the back, and sometimes I say, hey, what about the frunk? We're overloaded here, and then we use it. But
same thing here. We forget we even have it. We slam the trunk full of stuff, and we're like, okay, we have two or three more things to put in, like on a trip. Where are we going to put them? And then it's like, oh yeah, duh.
Forget about that. Yeah.
we have something in the front we can use.
So it turns out that in an interview with CarBuzz last month, Lucid CEO Pete Rawlinson revealed this SUV and some concerns about how it's going to compete with the Rivian SUV, the R1S. And he says, I'm not worried. When asked about the competition with the R1S, Rawlinson said, how's Rivian going to respond? Because Gravity is going to be the best SUV out there, and no one will be able to compete with it.
Gotta love the confidence, man.
Yes. And he adds, to me, product is king. Whoa, then he gets tough. He says, bring it on. But I've driven an R1S and I've driven a Gravity, so I'm not worried.
Bold statement. I really like seeing Peter Rawlinson say those kind of things, though, because it leads people to think a little bit. Oh, Rivian's going to have to compete with us. We don't have to compete with them or anybody. We're going to have the best SUV on the planet, bar none.
Right.
I love that.
So earlier this year, they say that Rivian updated the R1T and R1S with hundreds of hardware improvements, performance upgrades, and a fully redesigned software experience, and a new in-house drive system, according to the Irvine-based manufacturer, they say. Now, we've got a neighbor here that has an R1S, and she likes black. Everything is black. She had a black Model 3, then she got a black R1S. And I haven't talked to her in a few months, but I'm seeing what appears to be a loaner vehicle oftentimes in her parking lot. So something's up.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not far away. We've got a Rivian service facility that's probably 1.5 miles from us, just east of here. But it'd be interesting. I'm going to talk to her and report in one of the future podcasts what's going on with that R1S. Why does she keep swapping out her cars, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. I've asked my wife about would she ever be interested in that, and she's like, I don't know. The R1S looks like the old Ford Flex. It's like a box on wheels.
Yeah, good point. Like a toaster.
Yeah, kind of like a toaster. And she said the Kia was nice because it was small. It was very boxy too, but she said this would just be big and boxy, and I don't think I'd like it.
What do you like about the Gravity, Jesse, since you already mention you might
Well,
want.
I like SUVs in general, and I know that Lucid has the best motors.
Okay, yeah, good
That's
point.
what's at least Sandy's breakdown. Um, they just have technology that's ahead of the competition in terms of speed and power, horsepower, longevity. Yeah, I think it's worth it, especially if it comes down in price to be comparable to like a Model Y performance.
And folks, we're rearranging our studio constantly. I think fairly soon now, Jesse's going to be able to be on camera again. So if you're seeing a better production quality here, it is because we're still spending money and adding equipment.
Right. Right.
And it's much better for Instagram now, I'm told, because now they see us rather than seeing the center between us with a void of people.
Right. You know, the Gravity, I like it. I'm still. I got another rock chip in my windshield yesterday.
Oh,
Okay, we replaced the windshield less than a year ago. I have two rock chips. One has now a 12-inch crack. The other one, the crack grows every day. So, and then last night I got a third, and it just made me think about the Gravity, because that windshield isn't just a windshield. That windshield comes from the traditional starting spot up over the top and becomes a panoramic roof as well.
wow.
What's it going to cost to replace
Yeah.
one of those?
Not the same as your average windshield, I would venture.
No, I don't think so. That's the one thing that scares me about the Gravity. Other than that, I love the car and I would love to see. I really am very interested to see what it looks like and how it drives and so on and so forth.
Yeah. By the way, GMC, we have the Star Brake repair kits, and the trick there is to get it as soon as you see it. So if it starts with a Star Brake, and oftentimes those will grow into long cracks and
yes.
wander around your windshield, yeah, that would be the way to do it. Is just take it over there and they'll fix that.
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, the first two that I got this time, one broke immediately, like that big around.
Wow.
It was a hard hit. It was instant. The other one hit it on the way home on a weekend, and by the time I got 20 miles down the highway to home, it had gone from a Star Brake to a 6-inch crack.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, what do you do?
Goes fast. So we left out the third element in this trio of car CEOs, EV CEOs, and that was Benedetto Vigno, the Ferrari CEO. It turns out Ferrari's first ever electric car. Now we're talking about first ever 100% electric car. Remember the LaFerrari? We got another one in the shop now. That is that's a hybrid. It's a combination. Exquisite 12-cylinder engine combined with an EV drivetrain. But their first ever electric car will be unveiled by the end of 2025, with the first deliveries expected in 2026. And this particular model will be powered by Ferrari's partner in South Korea called SK. And apparently SK has been supplying battery cells for the hybrid model, the SF90 Stradale, its open-top variant, the SF90 Spider, and more recently, the 296 GTB and 296 GTS.
And if you remember, we were talking about that Ferrari car just a couple weeks ago, the fact that they finally are making the conversion, and it's going to start at about $500,000 and go up from there, depending on the options the person chooses.
Which, having said that, I'm going to jump to another news item here, which we're going to do later. Here's a headline. Ferrari employees are not allowed to buy Ferrari cars because only a limited number of cars are available and the manufacturer prioritizes its customers first. Well, I had to chuckle with this one, all right?
Yeah.
If you've got an employee that's working on the assembly line, I doubt he's going to want to buy or be able to afford that $3.4 million LaFerrari.
Probably not.
Right. And if they can, they're probably not going to be working for Ferrari on the assembly line.
I would agree also with that.
But, I love Ferrari. Owned one for 23 years. But I love the Italian arrogance at the same time. It's palpable, it's real, and they are a unique car company. But I'm so glad that they're finally getting into EVs. The unknown is going to be what will happen to their customer base? Having driven one, there's some tactile experiences that go along with the car. And it's the vibration, it's the noise, it's the banging of gears, it's the clutch operation, it's all of that that goes with it. These EVs are going to they're not going to represent the same amount or kick in the same number of senses that you would normally have.
I totally agree with you there. It makes me wonder is somebody who wants to go to the Ferrari, are they going to be somebody that owns a LaFerrari? Are they going to be somebody who owns a Rimac?
Mhm.
Says, the Rimac's been nice, but it's been kind of glitchy. I'm going to trust the name Ferrari and go get myself a Ferrari to go along with my Rimac.
Yeah, yeah, you have a couple of them. And of course, the existing Ferraris, the hybrid cars, they still have all of that sensation goes with it
Right.
because it's a 12-cylinder engine in these cars. All right, got a bunch of comments here.
On Instagram, EV Smoke ATX has joined us again. Thank you for joining us. He says, ATX showing some EV love. Please, and whenever you guys get a second, check out some of our one-of-one race plaids that's got some big things to come.
Oh, very cool.
We'll check that out.
Yeah. Instagram, Oakshade104 says, agree. R1 is boxy. Saw a Lucid, stunning car, but pricey.
The Lucids are less pricey now than they have been ever. You can get a Lucid Air Pure for under $70,000 now.
Really?
Which, in the world of sedans, it's still high end, but it's nowhere near what they used to be.
Mhm.
Because the Air One Pure, the base level Air One, used to be 95, and they would go up to 200,000 plus, and now that one is 69.
Mm-hmm. Looks like we've got a fellow YouTuber joining us, Uncle Mark's Do-It-Yourself Automotive Fix-It channel. Look that up if you get a chance. He says hi from Manitoba, Canada.
Thanks for joining us, and everybody, when you comment, let us know where you're coming in from. We love hearing the comments and where they're coming from.
So here's another interesting article. This one is Lucid is outselling all competitors in Saudi Arabia. Couldn't have been in the U.S.
Yeah.
That's why I paused. So they're finding that Saudi Arabia is increasingly vital to their operations. Since the beginning of the year, Lucid has delivered well over 1,000 vehicles there, received $2.5 billion in support from the country's fund, the PIF fund,
Mm-hmm.
and opened new showrooms and service centers to support the growth in the Middle East region. For its first quarter this year, Lucid CEO Pete Rawlinson said that vehicle deliveries in Saudi Arabia surpassed 500 units. And now that we're into Q3, it's actually over 1,000.
Yeah.
So that's good news. What was the yearly total that Lucid was projecting to release?
Lucid's projecting to release a total of about 9,000 vehicles this year. Virtually all of them will be Lucid Air sedans.
Mm-hmm.
While the first Gravities will be officially rolling off the line in production by around the end of November, this first customer deliveries are not expected to take place until early 2025, probably December at the earliest. To me, the idea that of the 43 or 4,400 cars that Lucid sold in the first half of the year, over 1,000 of them have gone to Saudi Arabia. That's pretty cool for Lucid, because that means that they're doing something that nobody else is doing in the electric vehicle space, or at least not that we're hearing in the press, and that's that Lucid is opening up a new market, the Middle East, that hasn't been really systematically opened in this way before.
Or addressed, yeah. We have a picture to throw up, Jesse. It's actually called Lucid Factory. And in September of 2023, Lucid opened its first plant outside the U.S. in Saudi Arabia with an initial capacity of 5,000 EVs annually. And I guess that is going to be increasing. I don't have a number here that tells me how much, but yeah, you're right. The Middle East market, I can't imagine there isn't a market there.
I can't. I think there will be as well. I love the comment that they have that we're outselling all our competitors, therefore we need a larger footprint,
Mhm.
and so they're combining their service center into their sales center, almost like what we think of as a traditional dealership. Customers will have one location where they can buy the car and then take the car for service as well.
And later on, bring it in for service. Yes, that's true. Okay. So the Elon and Donald Trump conversation. For those of you that listened, watched it, I had to listen because I couldn't get the video for a while. It was an interesting exchange between the two guys, but here's some of the takeaways, at least regarding the UAW connection. And the headline here is, Trump and Musk face labor charges over comments about firing striking workers. In a Tuesday conversation, Trump praised Musk as the greatest cutter for firing workers who go on strike, which the UAW says is disgusting, illegal, and totally predictable. This is Sean Fain now.
Yes.
Being quoted. Well, it raised plenty of eyebrows. The initial headline I saw is there was a lawsuit filed. Well, I don't think you can file them quite that quickly because that was the next morning.
I'm not sure if it can be filed the next morning, but I would not be at all surprised if Sean Fain and the UAW has in fact filed lawsuit, or at least an official complaint with the National Labor Relations Board of threatening or intimidating commentary. To me, Sean Fain is simply jealous that Donald Trump and Elon Musk have gotten too much spotlight, and he has to grab some for himself. I really, his legal argument, Sean Fain's legal argument to me is pretty shaky. But by doing this, he grabs press for himself, for the labor movement. He kind of becomes the evil foil to Donald Trump and Elon Musk's good foil, or if you're pro-labor, it becomes the opposite. He's the hero to try to shut down the evil people that are trying to squelch labor and whatever.
Now, Donald is not the most eloquent politician that we've had.
That's true.
But let me quote what he said, and then you draw the conclusion. He said, he's talking to, of course, Elon. He says, "You're the greatest cutter. I mean, look at what you do. You walk in and you just say, you want to quit? They go on strike. I won't mention the name of the company, but they go on strike and you say, that's okay. You're all gone. You're all gone. So every one of you is gone and you're the greatest." All right. Well, it turns out at this point, Elon was heard, or he was recorded, he was laughing, and he replied, yeah, to Trump's statement. So this was the basis of this lawsuit.
And honestly, that's a hypothetical situation. Donald Trump has no standing whatsoever about what goes on in Elon Musk's company. Donald has a First Amendment right to pretty much say whatever he wants in that situation, and it would not be considered illegal because it's Donald Trump saying it. The free speech protections are going to allow these individuals to discuss, criticize, or do anything they want hypothetically in general terms against labor laws, strikes, etc. Now, if they were actively threatening to fire employees for striking,
organizing,
of organizing and striking, and there is a clear A to B relationship. Okay, the Tesla people in Austin are organizing to put on a strike, and last week Elon Musk fired everybody who was in the union. Okay, that would be illegal. But that's not what we're talking about. Donald Trump kept it hypothetical enough that there's not really a legal argument to be made against them. And Elon Musk just agreed. It's like, yeah, okay.
And Elon is known for his brevity. And that following day, this, I think, might have been something more for cause of action, right? He says about Sean Fain, he says, you're going to prison like the rest of your two predecessors. And the quote from Sean Fain actually is, "When we say Donald Trump is a scab, this is what we mean. When we say Trump stands against everything our union stands for, this is what we mean." And this is according again to Sean Fain. He said in a statement, "Donald Trump will always side against workers standing up for themselves. And both Trump and Musk want working class people to sit down and shut up. And they laugh about it openly. And that's when he said, it's disgusting, illegal, and totally predictable from these two clowns, he adds.
Yeah. So he's just a lawsuit happy guy who, again, I think he was jealous because Donald Trump and Elon Musk got way more press than he wanted in attention, and he just felt like he had to take part of it.
And like one of our viewers pointed out earlier on, is it possible that that the Tesla employee count exceeds the UAW membership currently?
That very much is possible.
All right, got another article here. This is a cool image, Jesse. It's well, it's a bunch of numbers actually, but it's the one about the Maglev vehicle. Can you see images over there now with this new studio setup? Oh, perfect. All right. So give us the Maglev image. And the headline here is Japan introduces magnetic levitation car, the end of engines and batteries. And of course, we're constantly talking about with this heavy demand drives innovation. And even though cars have been around for, more than a century, there wasn't much evolution taking place until EVs came along and put a demand on technology.
Right.
And now we're asking ourselves, do we really need to carry a 1,200-pound battery around with us wherever we go shopping or whatever? And so the propulsion methods are being reviewed. The storage methods are being reviewed. And this is an interesting concept. Maglev is not new. It's been used in trains.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you pointed out something that had me pondering.
Yeah, I love the concept of the magnetic levitation. The efficiency of something just floating on air is just incredible. However, how do you stop?
Good point.
Every braking system, even on the magnetic levitation trains that are in Japan, they have some sort of friction-based braking system. And this would be essentially a frictionless automobile. I mean, you'd have the friction of the air that you're going through, and that's about it.
Right. And the holy grail in inventing and technological changes and breakthroughs has typically been moving toward anti-gravity.
Mm-hmm.
And this concept actually achieves that.
It really does.
Yeah.
Using magnetic levitation to counteract the gravity of the Earth, I think is a brilliant idea. Obviously, a very nascent, a very, very immature idea, and a lot of infrastructure would have to be built. I'm sure 100% that they will figure out the braking issue before anything would come to fruition. The concept is fascinating.
So we won't need a hockey stick sticking out the window to slow the car down.
Well, we don't know that yet.
Yeah, okay, good point. But what they say is the elimination of engines and batteries. One of the most revolutionary aspects of this technology, they say, is its ability to eliminate the need for those two. And this change could significantly reduce the weight of vehicles and the cost if the technology is not,
Sure.
too extravagant. And it would decrease the environmental impact related to battery production and disposal.
Absolutely. Plus, you probably remember growing up, or as you were driving at first, because you had that 68 Roadrunner, is that what it was?
69 Plymouth Roadrunner
69
4-speed,
Roadrunner,
yeah.
okay. So that's one of those that if you needed, if your battery was a little weak, you weren't opposed necessarily to push the car and then hop in and pop the clutch, or have somebody sitting in the driver's seat in neutral, because it's easier to push in neutral, and then you have your clutch set and you'd slam that thing in the first gear and pop the clutch to start it.
The real trick is, Mark, if you're by yourself and doing that in a parking lot, it takes an enormous amount of energy, but I've done that as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. And my 73 Nova, I did a couple of occasions. But for something like this, I mean, one person to give it a kickstart and see how far you can coast, that'd be kind of cool. You could probably go a long ways.
Yeah, absolutely. All it is wind resistance at that point that would begin to degrade and slow you down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we've reached the end of our half-hour podcast, EV podcast. Those of you that like what you're seeing, in a half an hour or a little less, we're going to continue on a podcast for the Tesla Roadster. And we're going to be talking about the spaceman or starman, as they call it, that is traveling through space. Where is it now? What's it doing? Are there any plans to bring it back? You know?
Oh, great question.
Yeah. So one more quick Instagram comment. Oakshade 104 says they can use copper strips for eddy waves to slow down.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about that,
Yes, we
reversing the
did, just a
magnetic
little bit.
field. And yeah, thank you for the input. As always, we enjoy having you, and we will see you next week.
Take care.